Welcome to our Meet the Candidates interview series. We are now in the Midtown district with Don Smith. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
So go ahead and tell me what makes you the most qualified candidate for this assembly seat.
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of Anchorage. I've served on the assembly before. I've been in the legislature. I've served on the Anchorage School Board. I call myself the father of the tax cap, which is, an item in the Anchorage Charter now that has literally saved taxpayers millions of dollars on property taxes for now going on 30 years. And I've just been a real active, resident of the community, and I don't particularly like running for office, but I do enjoy getting a chance to serve and try to voice some opinion on issues that are going on in the town.
So if voters choose you to represent them, what is the first action that you want to take or first issue you want to address as an assembly member?
Well, the budget is, to me, the biggest thing that the assembly needs to tackle. We've got a mayor, and we had a mayor previous to him that they just can't stand to be limited on how much they can spend. And, I wrote the tax cap over 30 years ago, and the idea was that there'd be a lid placed on the spending ability of the local government each year. And both Begich and now Berkowitz are playing with it and trying to find ways to get out from underneath the restriction that has been placed on them by the public. And I want to get that straightened around. That's at least the first issue that I feel very strong about.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a tax question first then. Do you support a sales tax that would shift the burden from property owners a little bit, maybe diversify our tax base if it's under the tax cap?
I have no problem, if the public wants to go for, say half of the revenue coming in from a sales tax versus the 100% now that's property tax. It's going to be very difficult because there's a threshold you have to meet of, I think, 60% vote to put it on the ballot. And you have to understand that if the public said yes to a sales tax, you would eliminate only that amount of revenue from the cap, and the rest of the money would come from property taxes. You can't exceed, the dollar limit that is on the books without taking that provision out of the charter. So I have no problem. If the public really wants to have a sales tax, that'd be fine with me.
So looking at the budget that the Assembly just passed, is there anything there that you would have wanted done differently?
Well, I think the emphasis that is being placed in local government right now is off. We've got a mayor he's more concerned about, the street drunks and the panhandlers and whatever, not giving the police department enough resources to really combat some serious problems. I mean, people are breaking and entering and stealing cars and doing all kinds of awful stuff, and we just don't seem to be able to get a handle on it. And that should be the most important thing this community, does. We need to have control of our streets, control over people that are breaking the law, and drive by and witness a street person begging for money. Now it used to be one on every fourth corner. Now it looks like about every corner of Anchorage has got a person standing there begging for money, and people should know it's against the law to give that person $1, 50 cents. It's not according to our current law. That part of our town has got to be cleaned up. We've got to make these people understand that they can't continue doing this, because it's deteriorating our community overall when this stuff's going on.
All right. Do you think that Anchorage is doing a good job dealing with the homeless problem? What grade would you give the Muni?
No, it's not. But the answers that come out of this administration and this assembly, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the city and the state and the federal government got together and they took a building on 3rd and Cordova Street, 4-story, converted it into a 20-unit apartment house, spent $6 million on remodel. The building is worth $1.4 million, and the estimated cost to maintain that building on an annual basis is $800,000. That's $33,333 just maintenance on each apartment, and it means that each of those apartments, based on the construction and the value of the building, is somewhere in the range of $360,000. Now, I don't know what kind of an apartment you live in or house you live in, but my guess is that street drunk has been given a better place to live than you're living in, and most of the people in Anchorage. Most people don't live in a $360,000 house. Now, admittedly, this little room that they're being given is only 520 square feet, but our governments have spent that kind of money to provide that kind of facility for a street drunk. Well, you could take that $7.5 or $7.4 million and do a whole lot better with it. And I don't know if people realize, but we're encouraging folks to come here from Fairbanks and from Kodiak and from wherever to live here, because we got a heck of a good system built up for these people to live and never have to work, never have to do anything but just show up at Beans Cafe for a meal and I guess walk back up to their $350,000 apartment and spend the night.
I'm going to have to check the numbers on that, but there are people who say that they believe this housing first model is working. So what would you propose we do differently?
We find another warehouse like Beans Cafe and we put down a bunch of mattresses covered in plastic and pillows covered in plastic, and you invite them to stay there if they want a place to sleep for the night, and they can go over to Beans Cafe and maybe another cafeteria that's provided like Beans Cafe to eat. The idea of giving them a $350,000 dwelling is pure insanity.
So moving on to public safety, the mayor has said he plans to hire another 56 officers in the next fiscal year. Do you think there are other ways the Muni can address public safety concerns other than hiring more officers?
Well, one of the problems we have, and I think our police department tries to do a pretty good job in this town, but if you ever did a story on the salary arrangement and what happens when police get to within the last 3 years of their retirement, the kind of money that we're being asked to pay is kind of out of the range of normal, and we need to see that the bottom line and what we're paying for police doesn't escalate to the point. We've got police officers that are probably making $200,000 a year, and you know, that would go a long way if that was only $150,000 to hire more police. We do have a tax cap, and that's not going to go away. And there's got to be a lid on spending in this community, and everybody's got a share in it. But the focus that our mayor and the assembly have toward issues I disagree with. I would not put that kind of money into a homeless apartment building. And then you could take some of that money and use it for things that the community needs. So it's just a question of priorities, because there's only a lid that you can, a certain amount of money that you can spend in Anchorage because of the tax cap, which, by the way, I wrote.
Father of the tax cap.
That's right.
Okay, another question regarding police. The mayor has said he will not allow our police department to round up refugees for the Immigration Service, even under the threat of losing federal funds. Do you agree or disagree with his position?
I totally disagree. We have to have control of our community, and we've got some problems when it comes to immigrants and people that are being brought in here. And I personally, have a real problem with the whole idea of bringing families in from other parts of the world, in Africa or Asia, and if these people want to come here and pay their own freight and have a job that allows them to live here without being a burden on the community, hey, I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem where we've got to support them and feed them and do everything. So.
And last question for you. Do you think the Muni should find a way to allow ride-sharing services or transportation networking companies like Uber and Lyft to operate here in Anchorage? I know they have a vote coming up.
I understand.
But how would you vote?
I don't have a problem, except I think there's a fairness issue that has to be addressed. Every one of those taxi cabs that are on the street today are there because of a permit. And somebody paid a lot of money to have the right to use that permit. And if you just open the doors and say, okay, now we can have 75 more cars driving around taking care of people, and you take that value away from that current permit holder, you're not being fair. So I think they've got to resolve that issue first. I don't have a problem. Maybe they should have a certificate that Uber has to pay $75,000 for the privilege of driving the streets of Anchorage. But you can't take that one group over there and take away a right that they paid for years ago and give it to this person over here for free or for $20 or for whatever you want to do. You've got to make that part of the equation equal.
So this ordinance that's coming up, this next assembly meeting, they're going to vote whether or not to allow Uber. What would your vote be?
Well, I'd have to see the ordinance because I don't know what the language in it is. If there's some provision to indemnify the current permit holders. I mean, people have got $70, $80, $100,000 invested in that permit, and now you're going to make it worthless. You can't do that. That's not right. I don't care if they want to have 300 cabs and Ubers and whatever running around, but I think entry fee into this industry should be fair and equal.
Okay. Well, Don Smith running for the open seat in Midtown. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.